So welcome back. This is part 2 in a little series that we're doing while I'm helping my father build an 800 square foot shop here. So in the previous episode, we did all the sheathing. You may want to watch that. Now we're moving into the vapor barrier portion, and then I'm going to show you how we're going to flash out for windows and doors in this episode. So before we get to doing the house wrap, you'll see that we have seams, 4-foot seams, and all the sections where the OSB itself goes together. And because this is an open shop, it'll actually be vented up here. It's got a big roll-up door. This is not an actual conditioned space like a home would be. We are not actually going to seal these seams. That's something I said we would talk about in this episode. Now I'm going to shoot to a couple clips here where I just got done building our house, and we actually did seal that. Keeping a very well sealed home was critical to me. Not only does it make your home more energy efficient, helps with the electric bill. Ours has been excellent, but this also helps seal and keep bugs and other things out as well. So as far as these seams right here go, there's different ways that you can seal those up. You can do zip flashing tape, for example. That's something I did. Some people do liquid flashing where you actually put it on with a putty knife. You'll see that used a lot on the actual zip OSB panels themselves that already has the vapor barrier built in. Some people may caulk the seams. There's lots of things that you can do there. You just want to make for sure that you do something that does not interfere with the expansion and contraction of these seams. That's what they're ultimately there for. But having a very well sealed home, you do want to seal those out. Again, on a shop like this, it's not as critical. So again, with this being a relatively inexpensive shop build, we're just going to use the Lowe's brand house wrap right here. On my home, I use the Tyvek brand. It's just a much better quality material. Talking with a lot of people that's in the industry, the stuff seems to last so much longer. But ultimately, what this thin vapor barrier does right here, it's just like it sounds. This house wrap goes on a structure, so should the siding fail for any reason and any leaks get behind it, this right here will actually allow water to hit it, run down to the ground away from the structure. But this is permeable in a way that it allows vapors themselves through, so the house can still breathe. Even moisture vapor can pass through this, but the water itself, if it were to penetrate behind the siding and touch this, that's what this is ultimately there for. Again, to direct it straight to the ground, not allow it to pass through and get on your wood sheathing underneath, causing further problems. So this is a little jig I built right here for working on our last home. This works great with 2 people, but if you're going to try to house wrap by yourself, having little tools like this will really help you out. This is like some 1-inch EMT conduit right here, just steel conduit. And I drilled holes at different levels for how I want to space my house wrap up off the ground. And if you're going to put house wrap up high, like using some 3-foot rolls like this, I've got a hole up top. You can take a piece of wire or say an old tent stake like this, for example, run it through here. Now you can put your roll on here, and you've got yourself a temporary pole to hold this up, prop against the building, so nobody has to stay on a ladder. You can actually walk this around. A cheap piece of pipe like this, it could be PVC, steel, will really make the job go a whole lot quicker. Not to mention those bottom holes keep your house wrap up off the dirt and keep you from getting excess wrinkles in the house wrap while you're stapling it. So speaking of stapling, how we're going to secure the house wrap, you need to pay attention to local code in your area, or more importantly, your house plans could have from the engineer how you need to secure this stuff right here. Some require staples, cap head staples. Some places require cap head nails. Some places are okay with you just simply taking a standard stapler. I just purchased this DeWalt slap stapler, so I don't have to sit there and use a hand stapler. You just hit this right here. I'm very curious to try this out, but that's how we're going to put this up quickly, and then we're going to slap the siding on to ultimately secure this. But there could be code in your area requiring cap head staples or nails. You do need to check that for securing your vapor barrier. All right, so I'm going to take this pipe. We're going to go around with some 9-foot house wrap first. I'm going to look and see, pick a hole. I think I'm going to go with the lower hole here because we want the house wrap to go down past the wood material just a little. Again, if water were to drive in behind the siding, we want it to go down, ultimately shed to the dirt and not get on the wood itself. So I'm just going to throw a tent stake through that bottom hole. Now this will prop and keep the house wrap up out of the dirt, keeps it from slouching down and kind of putting wrinkles across while we actually secure it up. So that was my first time trying that technique. Thought I'd try something new on camera. Pulling straight off the roll. Worked out decent. Typically, I just unroll, walk the roll itself around like we're about to do. And this right here is a lifesaver. All right, so you can see we made it all the way back around. You want to overlap by at least 6 inches. I tend to prefer a foot. And you want to make for sure that you purchase tape made just for the type of vapor barrier that you're trying to seam together. All right, so now we'll move up on the sides with 3-foot rolls of house wrap. They provide that. Run that, overlap again at least 6 inches. Same with the outside edge, so it's kind of repeating the process, but you always start from the bottom and move up. That way when you put your next layer on, you're overlapping and doing what's called a shingling effect, to where should water hit this wrap, it's actually gonna run off. Because a lot of times you'll house wrap a building or a home and it may sit like this through inclement weather. We're actually getting rain tomorrow. That's why we're out here so late trying to get this wrapped. That's another reason why you may need cap-headed nails or staples in your particular area, especially if you're going to be house wrapped and it's going to sit out there for quite a while, because those will hold a lot better in high winds. Watch it. Okay, so you can see we did a relatively large overlap because we ran a 3-foot section of house wrap. We could have cut it in half. You can do that with a circular saw or a hand saw, but a little extra overlap doesn't hurt, and those 3-foot rolls are so much more convenient to work with. So we're going to seam tape this, and then I'm going to show you how I cut out doorways and windows. This is all temporary right here. We did late yesterday afternoon for the storm that was coming, but we still have some windows to cut out, and I'm going to show you what I feel is the proper way to do that. Okay, so one of the last things that I would like to cover in this episode right here, as far as house wrap goes, is how you prepare your openings for doors and windows, because this can get a little controversial online too. And by the way, I'm just a homeowner that happens to have a little bit of experience in building houses and shops like this, and I just have some thoughts and reasonings for why I like to do certain things. Doesn't mean it's right, doesn't mean it's wrong. So when it comes to window openings like this, a lot of times what you'll see people do is exactly what I've done here. We cut this opening yesterday because we were concerned about the building pressurizing with air with these coming storms, because we have a big roll-up door opening down there, and if you don't cut openings in your window, well, you can actually blow the house wrap right off. But what a lot of people do, they'll come up to a corner of a window, make an X just like this, kind of like what I've already done. Then what they'll do is take these flaps, pull them inside just like this, and nail them to the inside walls. Now there's a couple of reasons why I don't like the flap technique. Whenever it comes to an open air barn like this, we're not as concerned with sealing out, but that's one of my big reasons. So the reason we don't want to pull these flaps into an open shop like this is because, well, it just looks really bad. We're gonna do unfinished walls in this shop for now, and it may stay that way forever. The last thing you want to see is this house wrap pulled to the inside and staples everywhere. Just does not look good. So let's talk about the big reason why I do not like the pull in and tuck method, especially for a home. Now, whenever I build a home, I want it sealed as tight as it can possibly be. That's more energy efficient and it keeps bugs out. There's no point in conditioning the inside and literally blowing your money out the window because you did not seal your window opening well. So let me show you what I like to do here. I like to pull the flap to the inside tight and just cut out the window opening. Okay, so here's my thought process. Right or wrong, this is the way I'm thinking. When you pull a flap to the inside and staple it, you see how floppy this stuff is? It'll be the same way on that 2x4 right there. Then whenever you caulk, put your window in and nail it, well, guess what? Typically you foam or you just shove fiberglass insulation around the window to help air seal it out. The problem is now you have this flap pulled all the way into the house. It's floppy. Even when you put expanding foam in there, foam expands and contracts. This house wrap is never glued or sealed to this frame. So what that means is, whenever you pressurize your home, you're running your air conditioner, for example, it can actually come out behind that loose, floppy material, ultimately making it behind this house wrap right here, out to the ground. You're providing an extra area for your home to leak. So what I like to do is trim back to the opening like this, and then I will take some flashing tape right here. All different kinds. I use zip flashing tape on my house. This is a 3M brand right here. But what we're ultimately trying to do is seal to the house wrap and seal the wood itself. So whenever we go around the windows then, for example, and seal with, say, a expanding foam, that foam will actually bond to the window frame. It'll bond to this tape that's right here, and the tape is ultimately bonded to the wood. So you have a lot less chance of air leaking out and around. And the added benefit with a barn like this right here is you don't see all of that white, ugly house wrap pulled around to the inside and stapled everywhere. Okay, so now what I'll do is I'll take this flashing tape. I've actually never used the 3M before, and it's clear. Like the zip, for example, is black. This one happens to be split, where you can do half the adhesive. So the smaller side of the adhesive, I'm just gonna put right out here on the house wrap itself. Now we'll take the backing off of the other side, roll the tape. We're gonna pull this nice and tight to the inside and bond it to the wood. Now when you get down here to these corners, go ahead and cut the corner out because we're going to reinforce the corners. That is your weak spot and where leaks can ultimately happen. This is also a good time to have what's called a J roller. This is made specifically for applying adhesive materials just like this. Want to make sure we get really good contact. All right, remove that backing and repeat the process. Believe it or not, this stuff is actually stretchy enough to go into the corners right here where I was gonna cut an extra piece and do some reinforcement. I really like this stuff. So I don't know how well you can see, but this stuff's actually stretching and bonding into the corners, much like Tyvek's Flex Wrap, which is what I typically use. Now, if you want to take this a step further, we can cut another small piece like this, put it right in those corners, and stretch it out. Now we have a full reinforced corner right here. So hopefully you can see what we've done now. We've bonded the tape to the house wrap itself, wrapped it around, bonded it to the wood, and once we insert the window and seal out around the window, there's nowhere for air to now get behind the tape and behind the house wrap. Whereas if you do the other method of pulling the house wrap in, you do create a new area for air to leak. Okay, so I'm not gonna go in much more detail on sealing out the windows here. I'm gonna finish these out. And that's because on the next episode, we're gonna show how to install exterior doors and windows out here. And I'll go further in detail on flashing and why we're doing what we're doing right here. So again, no professional. There is a million different ways you can put up house wrap and do other things. Just don't forget, it is required, especially on residential homes. You always want to do a minimum of a 6-inch overlap. Make for sure that you tape your seams, and I highly suggest cutting out your openings for your doors and flash tape those in, or use a liquid flashing. That way you're sealing the house wrap to the wood frame itself. It's gonna make a tighter home down the road. All right, hopefully you're enjoying the little shop series here. We'll catch you on the next video.